Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and today I'm going to show you a cheap and easy way to make your own smash cake. I'm also going to give you some pointers about how to make it in advance. I will put the recipe for this plain vanilla cake down in the description box below, and I will also add on the measurements that I am using instead. The recipe actually only makes like 12 cupcakes, and I have multiplied it by 4. If you're just making the one cake in advance, then you can just go ahead and make the original recipe as is with those measurements. But I find if you're going to go through the trouble of making cake, you might as well make a little stockpile so that you have things ready to go. As you saw there, I actually added a couple teaspoons of lemon juice to the milk because I did not have buttermilk on hand. I often do this because I don't use buttermilk for any other recipe except for this cake, and I don't want to waste anything. You want to whip those wet ingredients really well, and then you're going to alternate between adding some dry ingredients and the buttermilk. Using this method of alternating the wet and dry ingredients is going to help you avoid overmixing your cake. With most cake batter recipes, it's really important that you kind of just mix until everything is incorporated and then you stop. A little lump and bump here and there is perfectly fine. You'll notice as well that I did not take out my mixer for this. I just find the job gets done way better when I do it by hand, and I can control things a lot more easily, and it all fits in this gigantic bowl. Time to butter your pans. The worst thing is when your cakes stick to your pan, and this is the one trick that my mom taught me about cooking and baking. She absolutely is not interested in the culinary arts at all, but this trick is gold. Take a piece of plastic wrap and ball it up, dip it into your butter, and then use that to kind of disperse the butter instead of your fingers. It works wonders, and it doesn't scrape against your pan the way tin foil does. You can use shortening or a cooking spray. The reason that I use butter is actually so that it flavors the cake a little bit more. I find that it gives it a nice caramelization on the outside. With butter, it does burn a little bit more easily, so we do need to turn our oven down a little bit when we are baking these cakes. As well, you're going to add a piece of parchment to the bottom so that nothing has a chance of sticking or over browning. You can either cut your paper really perfectly and have it perfectly fit on the bottom of each pan, but I am in a hurry, so I like to just kind of squish down that parchment and make sure it's nice and flat against the pan. Some of my cakes today are going to be funfetti, and the way that you make that is you just add a bunch of sprinkles and make sure to fold in those sprinkles. Do not stir it because it'll become overmixed. Over-stirring sprinkle batter will also cause all the colors just to run, and you'll lose that definition of the sprinkles. Those went into the oven at 325 for about 25 minutes, and you'll notice that the tops are varying in colors. That's because your oven does not have full even heating all the way through. However, I tested it with a toothpick. It came out completely clean, so I know they're ready, and I'm going to be slicing off the top anyway. If you've buttered your pans well and put that parchment paper down, then your cakes should easily slide out. We are going to freeze most of these cakes uniced and save them for a later time. This is a great way to save time for your future self. I used to freeze cakes just whole, but I found that it was way harder to wait for them to thaw and to cut them when they were so frozen, so this is a much better system where you just have everything nicely cut. That way you can take it directly out of the freezer, and after a few minutes you should be able to crumb coat it. I'm going to leave one of the cakes out of the freezer right now so I can show you how to fully decorate your cake and then freeze it for later. You want to make sure that you level off your cake really well. This cake actually baked up a little bit strangely, so I'm not cutting off that whole top, just little pieces to make sure that it's level. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want my 1-year-old eating a whole lot of cake, so I'm going to choose a cutter that is a lot smaller than a 6-inch, probably around 4 inches. I mean, most of this cake is really just going to get mushed up, and I don't think I'm going to want to eat my son's leftover mush. I do, however, want an adorable picture and the memories, so that's why we make smash cakes, right? Which is why going to your local bakery and spending anywhere from $30 to $40 for a smash cake seems a little bit over the top when you can make yours easily for about $10. And being able to prepare this cake far in advance is hopefully going to take off some of that pressure and encourage you to make your own cake. Since this cake won't be eaten for a while, I am putting some simple sugar syrup in the middle of each layer. This increases moisture and flavor. Today I am crumb coating with my favorite Italian meringue buttercream, but you could do American or Swiss meringue, up to you. In order to make this ombre, what you want to do is you want to start by filling your piping bag with just the plain white frosting that you have. Then, as you go up in layers, you're going to empty out that bag, and then you're going to add just one little squirt of whatever icing color you would like into that whole bowl. And you're only going to do about 1 or 2 lines of piping before you add a little bit more color. Repeat that process all the way up. I'm not sure if ombre is as hot of a trend as it was, but when it was, I was doing a lot of ombre cakes, so I've picked up a lot of tips. Tip number 1 is that you want to make sure that you start with the white on the bottom. If you do it the other way around, I find it's just harder to dye the icing without wasting. Tip number 2 is when you're adding in that color, do it very sparingly, 1 drop at a time, because obviously the more icing that you apply to the cake, the less icing there is in the bowl, so that 1 dot is going to become more and more saturated as you go on. Tip number 3 is make sure the application of buttercream is thick enough. You are going to take a bench scraper and swipe it all the way through, so it's really important that it's nice and thick so you don't have holes once you do that. It's also really important that you're not digging that bench scraper in the way you do with a crumb coat. You kind of keep it at a nice gentle distance so it kind of rubs against it. Now, I could easily just leave it that smooth, nice ombre look, which is a beautiful look, but it is a little bit harder to achieve. I find when you add in a nice texture like this, it's really going to cover a lot of the mistakes that you might have made. To create the texture, it's really easy. You just keep your cake stand turning and you hold an object in place, whatever that may be. I'm using a mini spatula, but you could easily use a butter knife or whatever you have on hand. Since doing a cake smash is really popular with the 1-year-old crowd, I generally like to leave my cakes pretty plain so that we avoid any choking hazards like large sprinkles or candies. If I do add sprinkles, it's usually something that is really tiny, like a sanding sugar. Before freezing this cake, which is going to keep it nice and fresh for at least 2 months, you need to make sure that you refrigerate the cake for a minimum of 4 hours so it solidifies completely. When you're ready to serve, take it out of the freezer for at least 2 hours. Now you have a beautiful smash cake, but honestly, this type of decorating technique could be used for anything. I've done this a number of times for weddings where the bride places her beautiful florals on top. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. And please be sure to comment, ask a question, or request. I love engaging with you. Bye.